All right. It's evening in the land of the Hellion Rocks. We're on Bleach Bangs Radio. We're going to do something a little different tonight, man. We've got a rock and roll roundtable with some pretty cool people. Go around and introduce yourselves, guys.
Hey, it's Johnny Condon from the Black Cross Brotherhood.
Helmer from Helmer Management.
This is Mike from Final Curse.
Greg from Skinn Jakkitt.
This is Ryan Vanderwell from Rattle.
Cool, man. This is something new, so bear with us. We're going to do a little, not your traditional interview. What we're going to do here is just rap with these fine young musicians and up-and-coming bands about what they think of the music industry, where we're headed, and the struggles of being a musician. Steve-O?
Yeah, well, I'm the manager, so, but even like my thoughts on the struggles of being a musician in the music industry, I don't know,
Absolutely.
I think the music industry has really changed, and that, you hear that a lot, and that it's not the same as it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and people aren't getting traditional record label deals where record labels are throwing money at people, and you don't see as much touring as you used to see maybe 10 years ago or so. And, it's ironic because I think that's really relative to the cost of fuel. Gas went way up, and, you can't play on Monday night for nobody anymore because the gas money will destroy your band, So, then people always want to bring to light MP3s and digital downloading. But my take on that really is that the live show just became more valuable as people started downloading music more often. You can get free music a lot online, but you can't get a live show online. You actually physically have to go to the show. So that's just a few of my thoughts on it. I'll let the rest of the guys talk,
Yeah, man, guys, go ahead, jump in.
Greg, I agree with Steve, man. I mean, the state of the music industry with, where people can download your music at any time for free. I mean, live has become the staple of everything. It's about, you better be able to deliver live and give folks a show, or they're basically going to forget about you. That's my take on it anyway.
This is Greg from Skinn Jakkitt. The way I look at it is, I used to work on the other side of the fence years ago when it was booming and people were throwing money at bands left and right. Yeah. And I used to run lights, and I was out with a lot of those bands, and I saw the excesses and the craziness that went along with it. But the way the industry is now, they're tight with their money. People are tight with their money because of the economy. You realistically have 3 days a week that's really good to tour on. And you better go out there and give them pretty much the best thing that they've seen come through, every night that you play. And that's one of the things we've been trying to utilize in setting up the tours is to do, like, Thursday, Friday, Saturday shows and just go kick as much ass as we can on those dates and then turn around and do it again the next week.
Yeah, this is Mike from Final Curse. As a little bit younger of a guy, I'm 27. It's always sucked for my band to try to make money in this business. And I've also noticed when you talk about money and the problems it brings, a lot of promoters and venues themselves, no one does any promotion. So it's all on the band to deliver the show, bring an audience, and do everything on their own with no help from anybody, really. And then, the band gets blamed when no one comes and nothing happens, and they do their best. It's hard to do that when you're 10 hours away without a little help on promotion and things like that. And, it's definitely difficult to play. We've had 3 or 4 members split just because of the expenses of just trying to play shows. But we keep soldiering on, but, yeah, it's definitely not getting any easier.
Copy that. It seems, my take on it, a lot of, with the modern age now and everybody using computers, it's everybody thinks that they can promote a show on Facebook or the social networks. And, not everybody's on there. Not everybody's looking at that, even though a lot of people are looking at their phones all the time. Back in the day, we used to hand out flyers for shows, and we'd go and tell people, and we physically got out there and put stuff in people's hands, and I think now they've just, they're relying on the freeness of social networking, and it's not that good a deal.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that, too. especially like with Facebook. I mean, it is a tool that you can use, but man, there's nothing that beats just standing in somebody's face and saying, look, here's where we're going to be. Bring yourself out. We promise we'll kick your ass.
Yes. Absolutely.
No, totally. I remember back in the day, 20 years ago when I played at a band in Madison, Wisconsin, the whole band literally went to Kmart together, and we all bought our own staple guns, and we each had a staple gun with our name on it, and, we spent a lot of time at Kinko's, and that very kind of old school stuff, and, that's the school that I really came from. I started in the music industry in 1984 when I met Charlie Infection, who was G.G. Allen's recording engineer. And back in those days, people actually snail mailed stuff. There was nobody emailed anything. They weren't emailing songs because it was dial-up connections, and that start in the industry I think is really helping me because I have a lot of old school in me, but I have a lot of new school in me too. So I think it's kind of a mixture of the two things. I think event pages on Facebook, for example, are really effective if you're inviting the right people. If you invite somebody from Antarctica to your show in Virginia, that person from Antarctica is probably not going to come. So, where those invites get sent to and who they get sent to is super important. So I won't say that social media is totally trash, but at the same time, I see a lot of blind promotion, and that, like the example is people sending out invites all over the world to people in England when the show's in Minnesota, for example. That's kind of a confusing activity with accomplishment. There's a lot of that going on, for sure.
A lot of the social media stuff comes in with laziness. A lot of people, they just want to invite mass. Just let me invite everybody. I don't want to go through here and pick the right people that are going to, be affected by this show because it's in their area. And it's a huge thing of having to balance it because we still do the flyers. We still go out, whatever town we're playing in, we still go do the flyers. And if we've got to go and a couple of weeks ahead of time, we try to go to some shows and pass out some flyers. I know I've seen Mike do it. I've seen Mike do stuff like that, and we play with quite a few bands in this area. And that's one of those things you have to do day and age to survive.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. I mean, the personal touch seems to be what's missing from the social media, like someone else mentioned earlier, and it's huge. I carry business cards for our band around too. So no matter where I go, I see a metal shirt or someone who looks like they might like it, go ahead and say, here we go, here's what we're about. And I have more people show up to our shows that I don't know from that. A guy that worked at Bojangles came one day, night of the show, I handed him one, and the people that, gas stations, you just never know. And I find that that's the best way for our band, but we do use the social media to the best we can, but Steve is definitely the king of that, if I say so myself.
Indeed he is. That's the truth, man.
Well, it's all about I was talking the world, too. I can't drive all over the world to conquer the world, so that's the value I find in social media, and that we're trying to capture the world's market, and all musicians are. And how can you go hand out flyers in California when you live in Kansas? It's impossible for you to go hand out flyers, so you can't always do that. But, I hear you guys for sure.
But, that's where street teams come involved. You got to utilize the social network, make some friends with people that are going to be in the towns you're going to hit, and, hit them up, give them a free ticket if they'll go out and fly to the town, That's what you could use it for. And I was talking to Stacy Blaze earlier today about the times on the Sunset Strip and all, and back in the day we used to see bands attending other bands' shows and trying to see how they could, one-up them and get better. So there was attendance was up, and everybody was hanging out at these shows and telling people about shows. So, yeah, the personal aspect is really what we need to get back into the scene.
There's a lot of entitlement for some reason these days. A lot of people think that just because you're in a band, people are supposed to come and see you play. And I know that a lot of people in this group of people that are talking right now, some of us are from the old school, some of us like a lot of those bands from the old school, and we went to a lot of those shows, and we met people like Dimebag or, somebody that connected with us, and those things stay with you. And if you go talk to people and you give them just a little bit of time, man, that goes so far.
Oh, yeah.
No, absolutely. Absolutely, man. I mean, yeah, you got to – I agree with you, Greg, man. A lot of band members these days think that they're still – I guess the the glory days of the hair bands and crap like that, when these bands were looked at like demigods or some crap like that. But then, like you mentioned, Dimebag was a real person. I mean,
yep.
He cared about his people, his friends, and his fans and stuff like that. And that's the way, well, at least with Black Cross, I know with Skinn Jakkitt and Final Curse too, and with Death Rattle, you guys are. I mean, we're just guys. We're guys that play music. And the most important thing for me is just to look out the crowd and see somebody just into what you're doing, into your song. I mean, so man, you got to spend time. You got to, hang out with these guys, have a drink with them. Just don't run off. I see so many bands at the end of their sets just take it off. No one don't want to talk to anybody. No one want to shake a hand or something like that. But dude, you do stuff like that, you're cutting your own throat. Basically, I feel.
For sure, man, and that's the most rewarding part. Being able to experience someone else enjoying your art and what you put, your blood, sweat, and tears into. That's so awesome. That's my favorite part of it.
Exactly, brother.
Well,
exactly.
One thing I notice about all of these guys and all four of these bands, that they actually talk to their fans. I mean, even if it's online, there's three words that are really, really important that contribute to success nowadays. The first thing is please, and the other two words are thank and you. And I think that goes a long ways, Thank you for listening to our music. Thank you for supporting our band. Please come to our show and check us out. And I just think that level of politeness is awesome, and I think that increases the show attendance. And bands that I see not getting on their social media sites and saying thank you and talking to their fans, they die quickly because their fans don't feel appreciated at all. And I don't know. I just find a lot of value in those three old school words. Please come to the show, and thanks a lot for supporting us and helping us. And I can say the same is true of my own management company. That I'm truly grateful to be able to work with attitudes like all of these guys. And at the beginning of the conversations I had with them were, please work with me, and this is what I've done, and this is why you should hire me. But I can even take this opportunity to thank all of you guys together. For being the way you are. I think attitude is everything, Right on.
Well, right back at you, man. We appreciate that.
Same you. We appreciate you, brother.
If I could jump in and talk, the thing about meeting the fans is what a great way to learn your demographic. If you're talking to the people, you're going to find out what they're looking for and what they want. And what better way to give it back by learning from the people that are your consumer.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely. That's the best marketing you can do. These are the people right in front of you, and they tell everyone they know.
Exactly.
That's a true statement. So, given the state of things now, back in the early days, and way back when rock and roll was just coming out of its pains of birth, it was truly a social thing. There was no outlet for it. There was, back then, obviously, there was really no radio. It was all word of mouth. We all shared the records that we liked, we wanted to hear. I think we're getting back to that.
Yeah. I remember in the infancy of my listening, the tape party. People would buy all the tapes that they liked, and then you would get together and connect all these stereos, and then they would record everybody copies of the tapes. And everybody had, all this music, and everybody was still getting paid because people would go to the shows. There was support. There was no backlash, and it's always been that way. People don't make the most of their money off of those records, the bands. It's the shows, and it's the merchandising, and it's dealing with the people and building that base up. That's where you survive,
That's where it grows. We used to have those up in the hills here too, but we used to same thing as you said, man. Everybody get together with all the old bands, all the bands that they knew of. You put them all together, everybody listened to them, and you trade them. That was what it was back then. You traded demos, you traded CDs or tapes of your favorite bands. That's how these bands the word got out about them.
You'd have people in California listening to bands from New York or somewhere because they traded it through the mail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about earlier with Charlie Infection's G.G. Allen's recording engineer, and that back in those days it was a lot like it's the compilation tape that was a big deal. And it's interesting that you guys are all talking about that, because my first copy of Metallica Garage Days was copied from somebody else, and they wrote Garage Days on it with a Sharpie. And it was given to me from somebody who had traveled from they went to visit their parents in San Francisco, and they came back to Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, and handed me a copy of Garage Days, and it just said Metallica Garage Days written with a Sharpie on a blank white cassette. That was the very first time I'd ever heard it. And, you know, Garage Days is one of the most, you know, notable albums of all time now, you know, and that's how it wound up in my hands. And, you know, it'd be interesting to see the industry go back to that.
People would do that, and then you would still go buy it. If it was something you liked, you're like, oh, hell, I got to have that. So you'd go buy it anyway.
True.
You know, my story on that is, too, you know, we used to have the support of the music stores, too, as well. I can remember being a kid, and I'm old. I'm really old, guys. I'm in my late 40s. In 79, I walked into a music store, and they had an import section, and I saw the first Saxon record, and I bought that record and duped it onto cassette, and I can't tell you how many other people I turned on to Saxon, you know, and that you know, is the way it was born and done. And I think now what we've got to do is you've got to develop a really strong fan base and utilize the fans, man.
Absolutely.
It's a total networking thing. I mean, that's one of the things I've liked about being in Helmer management is all of the bands are doing pretty well as far as trying to network with each other, too, to try to set up a web so we can catch as much as we can catch and everybody benefits.
Hell yeah.
You know, that's absolutely true. And, you know, I can make note of, you know, I worked in the music industry for the last 29 years, but I don't know everybody there is to know. And the combined number of contacts that we all have together is a really, really super strong thing.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You guys are lucky, man.
It's like an army.
It is, and you know, the thing about Mr. Helmer there is the guy, I don't think he ever sleeps, man.
That's what I've noticed. I get messages from him at 5 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, all the time.
Right? He's working you guys good, you know. He's networking and, you know, making things like this roundtable happen, you know, and good on him and good on you guys for working together.
Well, you know, it's nice to have a purpose and some organized things to do that are helping ourselves and others at the same time. It's a pretty cool feeling.
You guys are cracking me up, man. I'm like the Wizard of Oz here, really. You know, the last time I went to a show was actually a year ago. That's how much I get out. You know, there's just so much going on, and I have 7 bands on the roster now, so it's impossible for me to go to shows. And you know,
he's going to be going to a show Saturday, though.
Yeah, I definitely am. But you know, it'll be the first time in a year I actually got out of the house. But you know, there's a lot of stuff to be done online. You know, I the best analogy I can come up with is it's kind of like fishing on my end. You know, I can throw out your music into the world, and when the fish bites on it, then I got to reel them in and, you know, try to convince them to do business with you. But I'm just a glorified telemarketer, really, if you consider it. I have to sell the band to whoever I'm talking to, you know?
Right
the band is awesome, buy them.
I think you're selling yourself short.
Agreed.
I would agree with that too. You're the hardest working man in music right now.
That's the truth, brother.
The James Brown of management.
You know, and that's cool. It takes that effort, you know, because you know, having been around the scene for quite a long time myself, you know, I've seen it started back with the Beatles, really, man, where the industry took over and they bled it dry from that area. Then they went to the punk scene. Then they went to, you know, the hair metal scene. Then they went to the grunge scene, and they bled everything dry. And then they left us all hanging. You know, it just really.
Oh yeah.
You know, I'm at a loss for that.
One of the things I know that we've seen here in North Carolina, me and Mike, is between a lot of the bands here, there's some that are really, really great to work with. And it's like this in a lot of places, but, you know, we've seen it here especially, is everybody's into that click thing. You know, oh, well, you're a punk band, and you're a thrash band, and oh, well, you're just a rock band, and you know, well, you play pop, and who cares? You know, it's one of those things where if you're doing something and it's an art, and it's, you know, you're expressing yourself, and if you guys get along, to hell out of each other. I mean, you go play shows down in Charleston, and you might have a band that's kind of like Nirvana playing with a band that's kind of a poppy punk band with a thrash band with us and maybe even a rapper, and it all works because
absolutely,
it's music. Everybody just supports everybody.
That's
and
right.
I just wish we could get back to that.
And that's cool. That's cool that you said that, because growing up for me, and I think Steve can, maybe some of you guys can attest to this. Radio growing up for me, there was a rock station, there was an R&B station, and there was a country station. And on that rock station, you would hear everything from ABBA to ZZ Top.
Absolutely.
Rock and roll. There was no neo, post-classical, grunge, thrash, death, speed. You know, there was none of that. It was rock and roll, R&B, country. That's what we had, man. And in that genre of rock and roll, you had all these bands from, you know, varying degrees of, you know, heaviness or unheaviness, whatever you want to call it. You know, putting a label and I think it separated us. You know, if somebody makes music from the heart, from their soul, you know, whether it's country, whether it's classical, whether it's, you know, R&B or, like you said, rap, if they're truly making it for the love of making music, then good on them.
Exactly.
And I think everybody on this phone call, you know, is guilty of listening to more than one genre of music, and we probably love artists from all over the spectrum, and it is silly how, because of, you know, we play one sort maybe, it's just stupid how we pigeonhole ourselves even in our shows and everything. I agree with what Greg said. That's true.
Absolutely. I mean, me personally, I mean, I play, this is Johnny, I play in a blues band, I play in a country band, I play in like a 80s, tribute to 80s pop stuff. I mean, music is music and art. And if you just sit and listen to one kind of music, man, I find that it limits you in what you can do with the stuff you write. If you're listening to, sometimes when Black Crosses play, I'll play like a country lick or something, and it sounds really cool. You know what I mean? If I've never listened to play country music, I'd never be able to do that, man. You got to listen to everything, especially the blues. And the blues is the basis of everything. You know?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
You know, some of the old cats like Buddy Guy and shit. Now, I'd challenge you to find anything heavier. I mean, they're bad. Those guys are bad.
Well, you know I'm on listening, Johnny.
Yeah. You know, it's great that you know there's also the trash that's out there that people are just writing for monetary reasons. You know, it's in your ear now. Somebody I did an interview with somebody recently, and they called it fast food music. And those songs, they don't stick around. They're in and out. They're in and out. They're in and out. You know, you got the songs that are iconic and that last and they stay in your head. You can tell those were written for the love of music.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Genuine is the best word I can come up with it. You know, you said like music from the soul, but it's a trip that you're bringing this up, James, because I know that you did interview John Corabi, and John Corabi is like, he's way up the food chain on being developed as an artist and has obviously done great things working with Motley Crue. And he said that same exact thing about how cool it is for different genres of bands to get together and on shows and, you know, combine the genres at shows and how cool that is that everybody's just genuinely loving music, you know, music itself, you know. I just think it's interesting that you brought that up because I remember hearing that in the John Corabi interview, and I think it's cool that he's had something to say about that as well, you know.
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely, man.
You know, I want to jump in. This is Ryan from Death Rattle. I want to say, you know, a lot of times people ask me, you know, family members, friends, they say, hey, you making any money doing what you're doing? And I say, not really. You know, if they knew the amount of money that I spent, it's astronomical. But when I picked up a guitar when I was 14 years old, I didn't pick up that guitar because I love heavy metal and want to play it because I want to make money with it someday. And music for me has always been a passion and a dream, and at whatever level I get to do it at, it's still a dream come true for me. So, of course, it's always the goal to continue on and advance a career and so on and so forth and make money and all that good stuff. But, the whole point was initially getting into music was to do it for love and passion, and that's exactly it.
Absolutely.
I agree totally. I think that when you're doing it for the love and passion as the number one priority, the money just is going to come. Because, it's like I watched a lot of old interviews of Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix is one of the most humble people in the world. They would say, Jimmy, you're the greatest guitar player ever. You're one of the greatest. And he would stare at his shoes when people told him how great he was. And the world kind of identified with the fact of how humble he was. And, I think that just really helped him a lot. And his priority was to be playing great music just like all of you guys. And that carried him a long way. And having studied a lot of really super famous artists like B.B. King, Willie Nelson, and people that have the Beatles, and they just all had something in common. They were all super talented, but they were all really nice guys. There's just no other word for it. They're real down to earth, so right on.
I was talking to a guy, this is off the record, so he doesn't want me to use his name, but this artist was a stadium artist. He got into a band that they were playing sold-out stadium shows, and I saw them, in the stadium area, and then I saw him at a club show recently, and he seemed so much happier now. We talked a little bit, and he said he is happier now playing these smaller club shows without everybody interfering in his business. And, he got into the whole thing for the love of music, and it turned into a big corporate entity where every minute of his day was directed. And he's happier now making the music that he wants to make on his terms.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I can see that. That'd be awesome. That's awesome.
So,
especially because probably when he was doing it a little ways back, it was even more corporate, and controlling.
And he's kind of happier now, that now that he's in charge of his own destiny.
It's funny.
So we're doing the roundtable.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we're doing the roundtable. We got Mike from Final Curse, Ryan from Rattle, Johnny from Black Cross Brotherhood, and Greg from Skinn Jakkitt. We're just rapping about music. We got Steve Helmer with us. We're just sitting here hanging out, talking about the things we love, rock and roll music, other forms of music. And I appreciate you guys listening, and we're going to keep going. So jump back in, fellas.
No, I was just going to say that I said this recently, that, a lot of people have said that the music industry has died, because people aren't getting traditional record label deals. But I think the power of the music industry has really been transferred directly back to independent bands who are cultivating their own business opportunities with their fans. So I don't necessarily see the death of the traditional record label deal as a bad thing at all, because traditionally record labels advance money and take all of the money from the artists. Like, a good example was I met Shannon from Godsmack in New York, and I got to sit down with him on a couch in a basement in New York, of all places. Godsmack's a huge name, and he's just telling me he makes no money on Godsmack. Not at all, and he has a bunch of side projects that he makes money off of, and I don't think the music industry is in bad shape at all. I think it's in great shape because that money that was traditionally being taken by record labels and shady bastards, for lack of better words, is now going more directly from the fans directly to the musicians. So it's actually better than ever than worse,
Yeah, the bands just have to be smarter about how we're doing it. How we're attacking and the level to where we can reach as many fans as we can reach, and it's quite attainable. You just have to understand that it's a process, and you're building it brick by brick. You're not trying to speed the mortar up. You don't want it to collapse on you.
And that's another cool thing about the freedom we have now as independent bands is, age isn't a factor either. Labels had a say in how you looked, how you dressed, how old you were, no matter what style of music it was. You had your Metallicas and Slayers rise up, and then your Overkills and Exoduses, were swept under the rug even by labels and stuff. It's just a lot of stuff that goes into it now that we don't have to worry about. We can just be metal dudes or country dudes or whatever we are and just play our music and do our own thing. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree with you there, brother. Absolutely.
Yeah, I dig the influences. Like, you know, that's, you were talking about, Johnny talking about all the bands that he plays in, and that's another hard-working joker. But talking about all the different types of bands he plays in, within Skinn Jakkitt, the influences, everybody's got different influences. I mean, we've got stuff from like our drummer's favorite band at Striper to, you know, and he's never really listened to a whole lot of Metallica and Slayer and stuff. And we'll say stuff to him, and we're like, really? And we're like, really? But I mean, you know, we've got all these different influences, and that's one reason our band sounds different than all the other stuff that's out there these days, is because all of those influences, you know, create a different type of sound. And,
absolutely, bro.
And then realistically, these days, to set yourself apart, that's what you need. I mean, you got to pull from all those influences.
That's true.
I'm glad you said that because you know, this has come up several times in conversations recently that, you know, you got your guys at Slayer, oh, listen to Slayer. Well, if an artist, if that's all you're going to listen to, that's what you're going to sound like. You're not going to come up with anything new. But by broadening your horizons, you know, incorporating that Slayer with you know, little Hank Williams, you might come up with something totally cool that's totally unique and different, and you know, that will shake the world up.
No, totally. That's funny that you mention that, because I've said this to many people. Jerry Garcia is famous for a quote. Jerry Garcia said that you don't have to be the best of the best. You just have to be the only one. And another one of my favorite sayings is, you are what you eat. And that you are what you eat really means you become what it is you listen to. And if you listen to a bunch of different things and kind of make your own stew, I guess, for lack of better words, you come up with your own original stew based on the things that you listen to and consume. So makes me think of the Final Curse song, Consume.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. All these bands that,
go ahead.
Everyone, all these bands that we know that are here, that is Skinn Jakkitt, Death Rattle, Final Curse, man, y'all and us too. I think we're all trying to do that. We're taking our influences, and you can hear everybody's influences in all these bands, but man, they're taking them somewhere else. You know, the Final Curse, man. Mike, you guys are my favorite band. Period.
Get out of here.
The best thrash band I've heard in years. But you can hear your influence, but you got to take it somewhere else and making it your own. The Skinn Jakkitt, Greg, man, dude, you guys are killer, man. I mean, one of the best melodic metal bands I've heard in ever. Death Rattle, that's just this personification of epic brutality. I mean, and you know, we're all trying to take our influences and still have our influences, but make it our own. I think that's what we're all trying to do here. I mean, man, you guys are definitely doing it. I'm honored to be on the same page with you guys.
Oh, man. Thank you so much.
Right back at you.
You know, I totally think that same way, too, you know, and that all four of these bands are really my personal taste, you know, and that I had a list of bands that wanted to work with me, and I have to make the decision on who it is I want to work with based on the music. So, you know, it's like if I made my own compilation tape, it would have all these bands on it, and they would be, I'm a fan of theirs, you know, and I just think it's interesting that way, you know.
Absolutely.
That's cool. Well, I'm gonna steer the direction here a little bit different. We're gonna go around the table. I'm gonna call you out by name here in a minute. I'm gonna start with myself and what got me into music and what my early influences were. And I grew up in a house. I grew up in a rough house. It was a rough childhood. I had a dad that listened to a lot of country, stepdad, and my mom was a flower child, a hippie. So I grew up with listening to both of those, and I can remember Kiss. When I first saw Kiss, you know, I realized, you know, that made me pick up a bass guitar, Gene Simmons, and you know, that did it for me, Kiss. And then I got into, you know, the early new wave of British heavy metal, and that's what steered me. But I had that country influence as a child that kept me. I still go back and listen to it. People look at me, you know, I'm covered in tattoos, long hair, and everything, and they'll flip out when I put on some old Statler Brothers or Conway Twitty, you know.
Yeah.
But then the next song will go right to Metallica or something, you know. And that's what I grew up with. Steve, your turn.
Yeah, well, I've told this story before, actually, but my first introduction to music was my father was taking guitar lessons when I was 5 years old. And back in those days, the music teacher came to your house. You didn't go to a studio to have a guitar lesson. It was like the piano teacher came to your house to give the person lessons, and guitar teachers did the same thing. So, make a long story short, here I am 5 years old sitting next to my dad on the couch while he's getting a guitar lesson. And the guitar teacher's teaching him I Walk the Line from Johnny Cash. So during the lesson that he got, where the guitar teacher is teaching him in our living room how to play I Walk the Line from Johnny Cash, I learned how to play it during that same lesson sitting next to my father. So I can really relate to the country music thing. And, you know, I'm 48 years old now. I'm not going to hide the fact how old I am, and that's a long time to come through music, you know, 43 years of listening to different things and absorbing different things. But it all started with learning Johnny Cash on a couch in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. 5 years old.
Cool, man. Mike from Final Curse, your turn, man.
Yeah, I got into music mainly from my mom. She had me when she was young, and she was 16, and her favorite band was AC/DC, and she loved Van Halen. So it would make me listen to all that, so I loved all that stuff. And then my uncle, he was an air guitar wizard, and he loved Metallica and Megadeth and Slayer, and he listened to that stuff, Pantera. So I got the metal stuff from him. And then my stepdad was into David Allan Coe, Earl Haggard, George Jones, all that stuff. So I got the outlaw country from him. And so they started taking me to shows when I was 6. Def Leppard and Ugly Kid Joe was my first. Yes, I do enjoy some hair metal, even though it was talked about badly earlier. And, you know, and just, I love, like you said, I love Kiss. They made an impact on me when I was 10. Saw them twice in 2 nights when I was 10 years old, and they were just amazing. And seeing Metallica, and just really James Hetfield on the live stuff from 91 they did in Mexico City. I just saw him, and, you know, all the chicks were flashing, and he just looked badass, and he's drinking and just commanding everything. I was like, I want to do what that guy does. He seems pretty cool.
Nice.
And that's about it.
Ryan from Death Rattle, man, go for it.
Hey, my first introduction to music was when I was a kid, and my father was, you know, a really big classic rock guy, but he got me into Sabbath, and, you know, my dad he'd get a heavy buzz on if I blasted Sabbath all night, and it kind of infected me, and Sabbath and Ozzy really got me into it, and obviously I found the 80s Metallica, and that set me up to a point where I liked it so much that I wanted to be a part of it, so I learned how to play guitar, and my dad bought me my first guitar when I was 14, and then a couple of years later, I heard Pantera. That literally changed my life. And, you know, that's still to this day my favorite band of all time. And I kind of went from really big into thrashy stuff into more groove and modern stuff. And I'm really a big fan of a lot of music. I'm really the biggest fan, though, of metal, obviously. And I just love, you know, your groove metal, thrash metal, all that good stuff. So that's about it.
Right on. Johnny from Black Cross Brotherhood.
This is a story I almost kind of hate to tell. I was watching, what got me into music is I was watching MTV, and there was a Phil Collins concert on, and here was this balding, fat, little, ugly English dude, and all these chicks were absolutely going nuts for him. And I thought, you know, if that little dude can do this, so can I. So I went out and I had my mom buy me a guitar, and, you know, I realized I didn't like playing this kind of music. And then I got my first listen to the Blizzard of Oz and Randy Rhoads, and that completely changed everything for me, man. I became totally immersed in Randy Rhoads, and from there I went to, you know, well, obviously there was Kiss there too. Y'all mentioned Kiss before. Kiss was a huge, I loved Kiss in high school. But, you know, once again, man, Dimebag. When I first heard Dimebag, man, I mean, that completely changed the way that I look at metal, at music, at songwriting, at playing guitar. I mean, he was the king of the riff, and to this day, I still try to honor Dimebag. So that's mine.
Yeah.
Nice. And Greg from Skinn Jakkitt.
Well, mine comes from I got a crazy mix because my dad was in the Air Force, and he listened to a lot of Beatles, later Beatles, the drug years, and a lot of Kiss and Jethro Tull and stuff like that. I mean, you know, so I got a lot of the classic rock stuff from him. And my mom was big into the country that would come on every Saturday, the top 40 countdown or whatever it was. So I had to listen to that every Saturday. So I got all of the old country artists, the Hank Williams, the Conway Twitties, all that stuff, you know, and, which was funny because years later, when I in high school, I started working at a club here where I live, and started loading in, running spotlight, stuff like that, worked my way up. We would go out during the summer and do a lot of country shows, and I worked with people like Garth Brooks and, you know, people like that before anybody knew who they were, Vince Gill and stuff like that. And I liked those bands, but it still wasn't what moved me. And Metallica and Justice for All come out, and then it was like flip the switch. Everything started going to the little bit heavier. Then I got to work with Pantera, and it was over. The hair metal, I liked a lot of those bands. I mean, I'm a huge Jakey Lee Badlands fan, stuff like that. The technical players, I love George Lynch. You know, a lot of those guys come through. But once Dimebag and Pantera come through, and the way those guys were, that's why I am the way I am with anybody that asks me for anything fan-wise, because, I mean, it just left an indelible mark. I met him that first time, and I could not see him in a year and a half, 2 years. He gave me a nickname the first time he met me, and he would see me and call me by my nickname. He knew freaking hundreds of thousands of people, and this day still remembered who I was. And it just left a mark, and I never sang just to myself and in church. My dad's a preacher now, and I had a near-death experience where I almost died from some surgery that I had done, and I decided, screw it. You know, I've thought about doing it all these years. I'm going to try to sing, and it caught like fire. I mean, I've been with 3 bands, and this band in a year has blown up to the point where it is now, and it's just I feel very blessed to be around the people that I'm around and the people I know, and that's kind of where things are on my end musically.
Very cool, man. That's a great broad spectrum.
No, it really is. I remember I did an interview a while back, and somebody asked me what my greatest influence was, and I thought to myself, my greatest influence is really the pain of living, you know, and not necessarily from a particular artist. It's just the emotions that you go through, and I can relate to what all you guys said. You know, your childhood and growing up and all those things kind of point you in the direction of wanting to play music for sure.
Cool, man. Well, we're running up against the time here, so this has been a fun chat. We're going to do more, you know, in the near future with some different people, and maybe some of the same people. Steve, I thank you for coordinating this and getting it all together. Mike, Ryan, Johnny, and Greg, thanks for your time, and thanks for sharing. And final words, anybody?
Thank you, bro.
Thanks for having us. Awesome.
Final words from Skinn Jakkitt would be just be watching, because we're going to be playing shows with Black Cross Brotherhood and Final Curse and Death Rattle, and we're going to be all over, so just be ready.
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
make sure you pay attention to everything I say, because I'll be screaming and hollering bloody murder about all these crazy cats, and there you have it. I'll be the hub.
Hey, man, this has been the Hellion from the Hellion Rocks and Bleachbangs Radio. Steve Helmer, Mike from Final Curse, Ryan from Death Rattle, Johnny from Black Cross Brotherhood, and Greg from Skinn Jakkitt. All rock and rollers at heart, but we don't limit ourselves. Music industry is not dead. We're taking it back. We'll catch you next time.
Hell yeah, later.
Thanks.
Bye now.
Thank you.